Hey, Ramon, broad-based black economic empowerment. We love to talk about it. It loves to haunt our dreams. And with the Employment Equity Act on the horizon, I hear the Minister of Bullshit is trying to push the president to push the act through Parliament and get it signed. It has already, my correction, it has been through Parliament. It just needs the president's signature. And with that, I thought in this segment we could go through an article that was featured in Bloomberg, which basically talks about ownership of black companies in the country, and apparently they have fallen. Ownership has fallen below 30%. The article goes on to talk about it. They basically say that despite the Black Economic Empowerment Act being passed almost 2 decades ago, only they're saying where 4 in 5 people are black in the country, only 30% of the actual country is, in terms of businesses, are owned by the black population. What do you think of this?
Yeah, well, first of all, that headline is complete bullshit because it's only 30% of like sort of companies on the JSE, for the
Mm.
most part, and then there's a lot, and I mean a hell of a lot of black market companies. Not black market because they're doing something illegal, but because people just don't give a shit about the regulations about you know uh, registering a company and a PTY and doing tax audits and all that sort of stuff. Like Kazi Economics or Township Economics, it's like a huge black market in South Africa. There's millions of black South Africans who are proper entrepreneurs who make quite a bit of money through their spaza shops or selling fit cook or panel beating or whatever the case might be. They just don't form part of the official economy. So what this is referring to is like the official economy where people have a PTY, where they are audited, where they do pay their taxes and all that, which is a tiny fraction of the economy in actual reality. And that is the only part of the economy that actually gives a shit about black economic empowerment because everywhere else, black people do own that part of the Kazi economy or the black market. It's a terrible phrase, but you know what I mean. I'm sure everyone understands exactly what I mean. So the economy that cares about BEE is not doing too well in terms of making black people owners of that particular professional economy based on this report, despite the fact that once again, not Herman, Cyril Ramaphosa has said that BEE was a foundational sort of policy to get the country out of COVID and out of the COVID crisis, and especially the recession due to COVID. And even he is failing in that regard. I'm sure we are all shocked as he is to know that this is the case. And what is happening now is that basically what they want to do to enforce more compliance with BEE regulations is to, let's see, make it easier to become BEE, make it simpler. No, no, no. They want to enforce it through violence and fines and a variety of other things
Mm.
because the problem with transformation is you have to enforce it through violence and coercion because people just don't do it naturally because it's not a good business case study for them. If I'm making mattresses to sell to people, I don't care who makes the mattress. I don't care who my customer is. I just want to sell mattresses, right? But if I'm forced to take on someone of a certain race because of some policy, I will do it, but not very effectively. I'll just do it because it's a box ticking exercise for the most part. And funny enough, and this is an important reason why BE is being strengthened through this Amendment Act, is because it's failing, as always. It is utterly failing. So that's my partial view on it. What are your views on it?
Yeah. So okay, for the general people that are watching that don't watch us a lot, we have covered this segment quite a few times in terms of the Employment Equity Act. Just to give you an idea of what's actually happening with the act. So the act will empower the minister of whatever bullshit section he's
Labour. Labour.
whatever, some government dickhead. Like he's going to get the ability to just go, finance should have 80% black. And it's going to be, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be like that. But the rules around it are basically companies over 50 employees will be subject to his whims. Now,
Yeah.
under the current broad-based economic empowerment acts, companies with less than 50 employees, or sorry, more than 50 employees with a specific turnover, so it's turnover or number of employees, had to follow the rules. Now they're getting rid of the turnover, so you could be a company with obscene money, but as long as your number of employees is less than 50, you're fine. So now people have challenged it and gone, well, what the hell's the point of this? And they've said, if you actually look at it, 86% of the country is employed. in the private sector by basically these corporates, the big corporates, the multinationals. So those are the companies that they're going after. They're going after 86% of them. The small SMEs like our businesses, we'd be fine. We'll be fine, mate. Like, it won't touch us. And actually, I suppose this is possibly one way for them to say that they're reigniting interest in the SME market, because this article does also go on to say that the number of SMEs have fallen since the advent of the ANC. Apparently, there were 800,000 SMEs in the country prior to the ANC, and that number's just gone down, with the number further going down because of COVID. So it's possible that they might think, oh, look, all the SME numbers will go up because all the big corporates will suddenly be like, rather than have one company with 100 employees, they'll have two, each with 50, and then they're like 4 below the margins. Like, maybe that's part of the thinking. I don't know. But anyway.
But and just, I just want to give some interesting findings. Like, Byron, as a percentage, how many companies on the JSE are 100% black owned?
Well, none.
Zero people. Zero. After 30 years of BEE, 0% of JSE listed companies are black owned. 100% black owned. That is just that's just unbelievable.
Except it's not, because if you look at like a lot of the big companies, they're owned by hedge funds, and no hedge fund has a single owner. And this is actually part of the bullshit narrative. Like, a lot of the bullshit narrative, especially when it comes to JSE listed companies, will say, and we hear this even from people like the EFFs, oh, what happened to Monopoly Capital? Actually, it's not. It's actually the majority of it is hedge funds. They're private investment entities. Those private investor entities are not owned by a single party. You can't say they're distinctly white companies. You can't say they're distinctly black companies. Sometimes those hedge funds are actually owned by countries. Like, it might be
or pension funds.
A pension fund. It could be Florida's pension fund. Like, is that distinctly black or white? Neither. It's owned by a state. So to actually say, like, oh, look, it's got to be 100% black owned, it's like, no, you get that in small SMEs. It's impossible to get for JSE companies. So the fact that we say, okay, well, it's not 100% owned, it's not that big a deal. I suppose the importance, though, is, and it's something we spoke about, which we can touch on now, is a lot of the broad-based economic empowerment, when it comes through to the JSE, advocates basically giving your shares away. So you say, I need to give away a certain percentage because I need to have that like board representation, the share percentage. So the company carves out a degree of equity. Now, obviously, that equity has a value. Cyril Ramaphosa himself has famously benefited from this very scheme. And then what happens is they give that to an individual. And now they go, okay, as a JSE company, I now have 20% black ownership. See, I've carved out 20%. I gave it to somebody. And that's what obviously a lot of our channel and people that comment on this stuff, they hate. They go, why should I have to give a percentage of my company to someone else? But Ramon, tell me, what happened to the first JSE guy ever to be given a share in MTN?
Yeah, so MTN had a BE share scheme, I think back in 2008 or something to that effect. And it's something that similar happens in land expropriation and land redistribution. So the state, or in BE, the corporate gives a percentage of shares to a black person, someone who is empowered, so to speak. And then you find out, like 2 years later, the same person then sells back the shares to someone else. And they don't care that it's black or white. They just...
Sorry, chaps, that momentarily froze. What were you saying, Ramon?
Yeah, sorry about that. Portuguese infrastructure, awful things. But yeah, so a lot of people do get these shares. It's almost like winning the lottery, right? So you get shares, become a millionaire on paper overnight, and then you realize that there are some conditions to these shares. You have to attend board meetings, you have to make decisions, you must be treated like you actually give a damn about the company. So what happens is a lot of people who become BEB share beneficiaries end up just selling the shares for cash to whoever. White people, black people, brown people, Indian people, it doesn't actually matter. So no wonder there is so much churn in BE transactions, because the people who get the shares for free, ostensibly, want like hard cash. They don't want shares. They don't want to deal with nonsense. They want hard cash. And now that they've got hard cash through the share value, they can sell that value in return for hard cash, and they ostensibly sell it to someone else in that industry who perhaps is white, for example. So now people are saying BE is not working because the share whatever proportion owned by blacks is declining. Well, that is a phenomenal reason, because the people who get the shares sell it back because they don't want to deal with the nonsense. They just want the hard cash, which is the ultimate flaw of BE. But also, you can't force that person to hold onto those shares forever, because that's unconstitutional. right? And there was a whole court case about this. So that's why there's such a flux in all of this. It's just redistribution ad nauseum moronic. I wish there was a
Yeah.
Latin term, but I'm not.
So I know that this has recently been actually a case that went before the court, specifically in relation to the mining charter. So the mining industry said that it was fully transformed. They said that there was a certain percentage of it that was owned by black individuals. And then what ended up happening is that those black individuals sold off their shares. Uh, Typically to the Wati. The Wati comes along and buys it because, well, he can. It's a good investment because he's looking at it as an investment, not as a degree of colonization. He's just like, am I going to get good returns? So he buys his share, but then the mining industry all of a sudden it falls below the quota, if you will, because those shares have been sold. Now, the Minister for Communist Minerals, Gwena Matasha, did actually say to the mining industry, no, you can't fall below this. You need to get back to where you were. And they were like, come on, guys, like we can't just keep giving away sections or shares out of our company to somebody for them to sell it. And then we're back below the threshold. And then you're going to come, no, give it to someone else. Then we fall below the threshold and we sell it. Like, they're like, you can't have this perpetual churn. I mean, if you think about it, there's like just over 50 million black individuals in South Africa. You could virtually get all of them to get a share of the mining industry at some point, and everybody would just have to keep giving it away and selling it. And it's like, is that the idea? Like, so the mining industry took the minister to court and they said, look, once we compliant, we need to be ruled as compliant. And if we fall now below the thresholds in the future, you need to go, that's it. Like, we can't keep giving away
It's not our fault. We can't tell people whom we give shares to hold on to them forever or only sell it to a black person, because that is unconstitutional in and of itself. It's what the ANC wants, because they think, oh, once a black person gets shares, they'll just hold on to it. No, they're individual people who want to do various things with their lives. They will sell it to whoever wants it. And the court agreed with the mining industry in this case. So once it's fixed,
but the minister didn't. It's important to note this. The minister didn't. In fact, he actually called. He went on to TV and he went and basically said that he felt the courts were overreaching and usurping the will of government. So, in typical fashion, like he was like, "Oh no, this constitution stuff is rubbish. Like, no, we can't have this." So he got a bloody nose from it, and it was a good victory for the mining industry, but it was a bad victory for the government. So you can anticipate this is all going to kick off again. I mean, you're going to see it all happening again with the Equity Act, but the headline that black ownership has fallen below 30%. I'm not surprised. Every time, kind of like they give these shares away. Or they're typically, and they, as you very rightly pointed out, this relates to the JSC, so JSC shares. But whenever they give them away as token gestures, then all that happens is the guy, like a couple of years in, cashes them out. He's got 40 million. He goes and retires in somewhere that's not South Africa, mate. Like, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I would as well. They do the Cyril Ramaphosa thing, except they don't become president. They cash out, they get billions or millions of rands, and then they just do whatever the hell they want. It's winning the lotto once again. And by the ANC trying to enforce this fixed, strict quota, and that must be replenished every time there's, a change in ownership, or people want to do whatever they want with their shares, it's absolutely ridiculous. But watch them continue to try it while the rest of the world just carries on to the fourth industrial revolution and whatever else. We're going to be stuck here, talking about, oh, what color are you to own shares in what company? Like it really is rather pathetic, but that is the state of South Africa overall. Yeah.
That's it, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers. Bye.